Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Ask the Experts. Today we're joined by Urvashi Batra. My name is Anisha Lohia.
I'm Amrita Harish.
And I'm Mahi Milani.
Urvashi, could you please start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Of course, I'd be happy to. And first of all, thank you to all of you for having me here. It's a real honor. My name is Urvashi Batra, and I live here in the Boston area. I recently started my own entrepreneurial journey. I grew up in Canada, actually. Born in India, grew up in Canada, and I went to University of Waterloo for engineering, which is near Toronto, Canada. And then shortly after my undergrad, I ended up getting a job in New York City. And I worked for a consulting company there and then ended up going to other different companies and ended up in Boston many years ago and am now settled here in Boston. I'm married with two boys, one's in college and one's in high school.
That's awesome. Let's get started with our questions.
Could you give us a brief description of your childhood and were there like any defining moments that shaped who you wanted to be when you were older?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, so I grew up in a very small town just outside of Ottawa. And it was very interesting because, back then there wasn't a lot of diversity in these small towns. And now that town that I grew up in has changed quite a bit. And so I always felt that it was, I was, at home, I was very much in my cultural roots, but then outside of the home, when I was in school, I didn't see any aspects of my culture. Like no one knew about Diwali, no one knew about, there weren't a lot of Indians in my school in particular. So I think one of the defining moments was as I was growing up, I really was so hungry to learn about these different cultures, but at the same time, bring all those cultures together as well. And I really had the opportunity to learn a lot about different cultures when I ended up going to university. That population was so diverse. So I was a really good fit for that. So that was really nice to see. But yeah, I would say what was defining was me realizing how I really wanted to, bring cultures together as much as possible.
That's really interesting. Thank you.
Yes.
In an earlier conversation, you mentioned that you learned Kathak and Hindi. How did those experiences shape your personal and professional life?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I learned my mom in the Ottawa community up in Canada. She was very involved in the Hindi schools. At one point, she was like the principal there, very strict principal. So I felt like I had to really be on my best behavior. But as much as I didn't necessarily like spending my Saturday mornings going to Hindi school when everyone else got to sleep in and watch cartoons. I really appreciate it because, as someone who grew up in North America, it was a part of my culture that I really appreciated, and that part of learning Hindi wasn't just about learning the language. It was also being involved in cultural programs. It was, that's really where I got into dance because we used to do a lot of folk dances. I actually started learning Bharatanatyam when I was really young, and then I switched to Kathak probably when I was about 10 or 12. And I was really drawn to that. Again, for me, Kathak felt like very universal. And the more I learned about it, the more I could see elements of ballet. I could see elements of um, Tai Chi, yoga, flamenco, and that was something I was probably really drawn to, given my interest in so many different universal cultures. And so it really shaped both of these shaped who I became, personally and professionally. On the personal side, I think I had a unique perspective coming here in the US because I had grown up in both cultures. So I really kind of was drawn to surfacing my Indian roots a lot. I stopped learning Kathak when I went to university and started working because it was really just tough to navigate with my career and stuff. But now I look back and when I was, I think, 20 years after working, I got back into Kathak here in the Boston area through Chandika, wonderful Kathak school. And Gretchenji really kind of helped lift me and get me back into what I really loved. And I actually think professionally, I am tapping back into that, particularly in the age of AI. It's so important to bring those senses, feeling, human-centered aspects of all of us. And for me, one of those aspects is Kathak. So it's helped me both personally and career-wise.
Yeah, my mom also teaches Kathak at the Hindi school that I used to go to. So
Oh, that's
yeah, she talks a
great.
lot about like the discipline that comes with it, and how
Yes.
much it helps her in her personal life as well. So yeah.
Yeah, the discipline. Oh, absolutely. I mean, with any practice, bringing in that muscle memory as much as you can. And again, so important in this age we live in today is, bringing that muscle memory and that discipline in, something you can't really get in a lot of the work area because everything's moving so fast.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So now we want to talk a little bit about your high school life. So, did you feel a big cultural gap from your classmates and peers?
Yes, I would say absolutely. I was probably between my sister and myself and a few other students out of about 600 to 700 students that were in the high school. We were probably the only sort of ethnic group there. So definitely, I mean, people didn't understand a lot of aspects of our culture, right? And I was very shy. I was more of an introvert growing up, so I didn't really make too much of an effort to try to, talk about it because I was nervous because I felt like people would make fun of it. And but it wasn't until later on in life where I realized like, oh, that actually is what made me unique. It wasn't, in retrospect, I probably shouldn't have shied away from my own culture as much because it was part of who I was. Like that was my authentic self. And I think a lot of other people felt it too. We just tried to fit in wherever we could. The great the best analogy I can think of that is I felt like I had my feet in two worlds. At home I was so Indian, and then outside of the home I had to be so non-Indian, right? And how could I best fit in around that? So definitely there was a cultural gap. And it's very different now. Like if you go to those same high schools, it's the diversity is um is amazing, as it is in most towns here, which is really nice. And now it's a very different world. My kids didn't grow up with the same stuff that I did. So it's the world has really progressed, I think, from there.
Yeah, definitely. Did you face any challenges back then, and how did you overcome these challenges that you may have faced?
Yeah, my biggest thing was, yeah, I mean, I think being more on the quiet side. There were times where, I did feel like I was bullied into doing things or pressured into doing things that I wasn't comfortable with. Um, I was afraid to bring like Indian food to high school because I felt like people were going to make fun of me because they had in the past. So I definitely, so I was just heads down. Like that's how I dealt with it. I was in my books, whether that was good or bad, I don't know, but it definitely helped me in my education. I would say another aspect of growing up was sort of the socioeconomic divides that existed in both cultures, I would say. That was everywhere, and to some extent that is still now. And I knew I didn't grow up with a lot of sort of the economic means that a lot, kids in my area do today, or that we're able to provide to our kids. And so my way out of there was education. I was just very drawn to my studies. I knew my only way out of sort of being um, tagged in this sort of specific socioeconomic status was to just educate my way out of it. And it definitely worked in my favor.
That's very relatable. I definitely relate to what you said about the Indian food. I remember always being like nervous bringing my mom's home cooked meals to school. So I definitely
Yeah,
that.
definitely. Yeah. Mhm. And I think it's about it, awareness and education, right? Like just,
Yeah.
hey, no, this is this and this is what it's made out of. And yeah, it might look a little different, but it's actually really tasty. And now my son was telling me that they made a curry dish at the school the other day at his high school. So things are really different.
Shifting gears a little bit, what advice would you give a high school student who maybe was in your shoes or still trying to figure out what they wanted to do when they were older?
Yeah, I think I would say lean into your authentic self. Like, don't see a lot of the times in high school, like I used to see my unique stuff. Like, I used to think, like, why do I think so differently when it comes to like bringing people together? Not a lot of people talk about that. And, I felt that life was unfair in a lot of ways with people. I'm a highly empathetic person, so I really felt deeply for other people who were being made fun of or didn't get on a team or something like that. I could see that disappointment in their eyes. And I always used to think like that used to like affect me quite a bit. Like I used to think a lot about not only my challenges, but the world's challenges. And I always used to think that that was a weakness, but it's not. Like the advice I would give is tap into your own strengths and do not see them as weaknesses. Because, the best thing about you is everything, whether it be, the ups and downs that you've had in life, like that's all part of what makes you as amazing as you are. So really look deep and try to see like, hey, what can I bring to the table? What can I lean into more? And never stop learning and never stop growing. Even at my age, I always say that, I'm over 50 now, and I often think about, hey, what can I learn more? One day maybe I do want to go back and do like a certificate or go back to school. Like I'm always trying to learn. So I would say that hunger for learning should never stop. Um, and then the one thing I would say skills wise, and this is just from my own experience, is in today's world that we live in, communication is really, really big. So as and networking is really, really big. So even if you can create a community, of like what you three are doing is amazing, right? You're building this community, you're interviewing all these different experts from so many different disciplines. So that's a community in itself. Like things like that, like just continue to build on that and try to be seen as a sort of eventually as a subject matter expert. The compounding effect of communicating and networking is enormous, particularly in this day and age. And then the other thing I would say, I'm very passionate about this topic, is lean into AI because AI is everywhere, but don't lean into it too much. You don't want to give up your critical thinking skills. And so really force yourself to, before you jump into AI for anything, like think yourself about how your authentic self would approach the problem or approach anything I'll give you an example. Like I created a mini uh chat GPT to relearn my Kathak, right? The theory part of it. I'm getting back into Kathak now because I want to expand my left brain more on the creativity side and the dance side. And so I've created a little chat GPT to learn more of the theoretical aspects of Kathak, just to kind of um keep those that muscle memory alive, you know? So yeah, those are the things that I would say.
Yeah, thank you. That's really good advice. I see a lot of people in high school, like trying to fit in with other people or doing what everyone else is doing. But I do think it's like powerful that you said everyone takes their own path because I think,
Yeah.
yeah, everyone wants to do something different. So I think, yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and the other thing I'll say is I've started a business. I started last year, and do I have imposter syndrome? Yes, absolutely. I always think like, oh my God, someone's doing it, someone else is doing it, someone else could do it better. But all these things go through my mind. But at the end of the day, I truly believe a lot of people can be doing what you're doing, but no one's doing it with you in the picture. And that's what makes your company, what you're doing so unique. Like even this podcast, right? Like no one's doing it with all of you and your personalities and what you bring to the table like you are. So just lean into that.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about your college experience as well. So you attended Waterloo University, which is a very prestigious university. So how did your experiences there shape who you are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, it was great. Like I think I mentioned earlier, when I got to university, I really felt like I found my people. Um, the diversity was amazing. I got to meet like people from all different cultures. I learned a lot about the Chinese culture. One of my good friends was from there, and I learned more and more about Chinese New Year's. We used to go to dim sum and all that a lot with my friends. Vietnamese friends I had, like, and a lot of Indian friends too. So it was really nice. I think what I learned from there was um, the discipline. Like I got really deep into my discipline because it was a tough program. But I have to say it wasn't all like roses either. It was a really tough program. And at one point I was thinking like, hey, is this even for me? Like I would call my parents and I'd be like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I could do it. But this one year, which we called, so every semester, so we had a 1A and a 1B. The good thing about my program is I was working every 4 months. I was in the co-op program. So we had two semesters each year, but it would be broken into a work term. So you would do 1A and then a work term, 1B, and then a work term. And then you do that for to second year, third year, fourth year. And so I remember the semester of 2B, they used to call it to be or not to be. So that was like the really grueling semester. And that was a time when I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could do this. It was just really tough. But, we all like the teachers, my friends, my friends were all in the same boat as me. So we helped each other out quite a bit and pulled through and I'm glad I did because that discipline ultimately landed me my first job in New York City, right? Like the employer came right to the campus and they interviewed a bunch of people. And so they offered me a job in New York, which was really exciting. But yeah, I would say the discipline, connecting more with universally with so many different cultures was really a nice part of being at Waterloo.
Yeah, I think that's something we hear a lot of people like often describe as how like the transition from high school to college, like the main thing is seeing people so different from yourself. Because I feel like in high school you're seeing people that have been in the same town their whole lives. And then
Yeah.
especially, coming from a diverse background to see other people with that same diverse background is really interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's great. And here we live in like when I was going to university, it was very, very different. It's a lot in many ways, a lot more stressful now, but you also have so many great options, right? I applied to three schools. $50 later, I was just selected one. I selected Waterloo on purpose because they had the co-op program, so I could financially also help support myself throughout college because I didn't want to put that burden on my parents, given the situation they were in. So um, that was like a no-brainer for me. But had I done it again, I probably would have looked at other options also. And I think I think you all live in a world today where you have some great options. And I think it's good that you guys all do college visits and stuff like that, or just really understand and do your research because I have to say there's a place for everyone and there's a really good place for everyone when it comes to college.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So now I want to ask you what motivated you to pursue your MBA in the US rather than in Canada? And was your experience in the US different?
Yeah, so I did my undergrad in Canada and then I moved to the US. And honestly, as much as I love Canada, I just felt that there was a lot of opportunity in the US. So hence my initial move here. And once I came here, I honestly didn't think I wasn't sure. I didn't have it in my mind that I would, ever go back. Not because I didn't like it. It was just, one job to the next just kept me in the US. And then I met my husband and then, we settled here in Boston. Um, Going to grad school was very interesting because I I did my MBA at Babson here in Wellesley, but I did it a little late in a lot of people's eyes. I did it when I was, gosh, in my mid 30s, which is not unheard of now, but just the stage I was at in my life. I remember to this day, like not that my husband was discouraging me, but my husband and some of my friends, they were like, are you really going to get anything out of it? Like you have a good paying job now or decent paying job. Um, you're working in tech. Like what are you going to get out of an MBA? And for me, it was more of it's always something I wanted to do. And so I said, you know what, if anything, like this is again part of I just want to continue to learn and grow. And it was a pretty big investment, but I did it because I just felt that it would work in my favor in the long run. And Babson was the only school I applied to, again, because I needed to be local. I needed a part-time option. I could have done like other schools like Northeastern, but I liked the idea of Babson because I was like right around the corner. We lived in Natick at the time. Um, and I knew we were going to be starting a family soon, so I was just like, let's just see how it goes. I had the flexibility of doing this part-time. And sure enough, I did it part-time because it took me 5 years to get my MBA degree. But I was also working full-time. I had both my kids during that period, so I took a few semesters off. Um, if I had to do it again, I probably would have done my MBA a little bit earlier, just to get not so much earlier, but just a different phase in my life because I didn't get a chance to really, immerse myself in the classroom environment, go to networking events. Like when you go to MBA school, so much of it is networking. A lot of my other peers, college friends were like they were doing international programs. I wasn't able to do that. So it was just a different time for me, but I'm so glad I did it because the connections I made through that were amazing. So yeah, in terms of making that decision to go back to Canada versus here for my grad school, it didn't even cross my mind because I was already settled here. So, and I needed something super close to me, given the phase in my life I was at.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your company and like what you guys do and all of that?
Yeah, I would love to share that. So my company name is PriorWise. And we got that name from just bringing two words together, which is prioritize wisely, like prioritize work wisely, what you do in your business. And so what we are doing is we are helping IT companies manage and grow their accounts. I wouldn't say manage, more grow their accounts. And how do we do that? So typically, just to give you some context, I've worked in the IT space and the software technology space for many, many years. I used to work for a few startups, and then I used to work for a bigger company called VMware. And what VMware does is they have various infrastructure products, and typically every product company has a professional services group, which are basically a bunch of consultants that help implement the products. So I was part of their professional services group, and I helped implement these IT infrastructure solutions for many different companies, big banks, healthcare companies and all that. And so based on that experience, I saw a lot of pain points, and those pain points were around, hey, we serve our clients from a technical perspective, but a lot of times it's hard to show, hey, how are we helping our business? How are we doing this? Even though they're doing a lot of that, it's hard to translate the technical aspects of what they're doing into the business context. So essentially that's what we're doing is we help these IT companies look at signals across their data, essentially anywhere that these IT companies keep their client information, whether it be contracts or tickets or anything like that. We extract data from their data sources, and then we will surface things like, hey, you did this great work. This is how you can present it to your client. And by the way, we found this one piece of information that may be relevant and may help you expand on this account, and you can get more revenues across that. So we're really building like an AI driven growth and value engine for these IT companies. So yeah, it's very exciting. I have a co-founder, and we're just bringing on another person on the team. She's based out of California. My co-founder and I are here in the Boston area. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Wow, yeah, that is a really good business idea. Like I see like the value in that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course.
So, as a co-founder, there's a lot of things to consider, especially starting anything new. So, I would ask you, like, how did you go about doing that, and what challenges did you face along the way?
Yeah, it was a really hard decision for me. I always had it wasn't it, it was hard to get started, I would say. I always had this like itch to start my own business. I just, my heart was in one place. I wanted to do something to save the world, but I also needed to be practical and hone in on my skills. And I feel like in this way, I'm doing a little bit of both, because yes, I have my business. Ultimately, we are helping our clients have more human connection and relationship building with their clients. So that's where the human-centered aspect comes in. Um, and so I think I mentioned this earlier. I was very shy, even all throughout much of my career. And this is why I say communication and networking is so important, because I have felt the downside effects of not doing that, because it was hard for me to come out of my shell to you know, be more of an extrovert and just get out there and meet people on a professional level, right? I didn't do that till much later in my life. And so when I quit my job in the corporate world, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something. Two things that kind of changed my trajectory to really focus in on starting something. I went for a 10-day silent meditation retreat called Vipassana. And that was amazing because it really cleared a lot of it cleared my mind. It helped me see things uh, a lot better in terms of where I see myself going. And it gave me a lot of it gave me the courage to just actually go out and do it. So that was really nice. Um, and then when that happened, honestly, I felt this sounds a little bit like hokey pokey, but I really believe in it. I felt like the universe just started speaking to me. I started going out to more networking events, connecting with people. I met my co-founder shortly after my Vipassana, and we started. And that was another uncertain time when we met because we weren't sure. We knew we had some ideas. We weren't. We didn't want to dive into it right away, but we decided we would work together for every day for a few months. And I would say that was probably one of the best decisions we made, despite the uncertainty that was behind it. Really getting to know the people you're going to work with is really important. And the only way I could do that, and he could do that with me, was okay, let's not make any commitments yet in terms of starting our business. Let's just work together every day for a few months and see how we interact, see how we work, see how we um, overcome conflicts because we knew there would be conflicts or disagreements and stuff like that. So that was really good. And then I think your other question was around sort of challenges and pivots along the way. We made a lot of pivots along the way, and that's just part of starting a business. I think it's what a lot of founders say, it takes hard work, knowing the problem, um, a little bit of luck and a lot of grit. And I would say the last part, a lot of grit is definitely a huge part of the business. A lot of times when we made a major pivot last year, and that was a really hard decision because we had invested so much time and money into our product. And then we decided all of a sudden to switch into another area. So, but it was the right thing to do. But those were some of the defining moments that really tested our patience and tested our willingness to continue and move forward. Sorry, that was a bit of a long answer, but hopefully that was okay.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap up with one last question. So, what are your thoughts on AI's effect on the job market, and what advice do you have for people or students who are looking into exploring the world of AI?
Yeah, I would say, lean into AI and as I mentioned before, don't let it replace what you bring to the table. Don't use it. Don't. You almost have to think like if you're really deep into AI, which I think everyone should be leaning into AI because it's with us now, no matter what. Even if you're leaning to think about how much you could still give in terms of yourself if AI wasn't in the picture. And if the answer is not much, then, I think you're relying too much on AI. So you have to have the right balance. Um, but, there's despite despite the some of the doom and gloom that people are talking about with AI, it will affect the workplace, but those that continue to lean in to AI and at the same time bring in their skill set are the ones that I believe are going to, be able to sustain being in this environment. Um, yeah, so don't give up. I mean, a stat I just heard, it's very interesting. Only 20% of children, I'm talking younger children, are getting exposed to AI. In China, apparently it's 100%. So this is, really where the world is going. So it's our opportunity to really take advantage of it. And I would say don't stop. The time you save when you lean into AI, use that time to meet people and network with people. I don't want to I can't underscore that enough because I think that's really important. I see networking almost as a compounding effect. Like think of putting money in the bank and just letting it sit there and letting it grow and chipping away at it and putting a little bit more. Same thing. Start to network, start to build your social media on what you're interested in and in 1, 2, 5, 10 years, you will have a great network that you could tap into.
Yeah, thank you so much for your answer. And since that was our last question, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and answering our questions. You had really great responses, and I had a great time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me. And it's a real honor this is, I get invited to podcasts here and there, and I'm always excited to do it. But this one in particular, I was very excited about because you all are our future. So anything little we can do here and there to help out, we're happy to do. You three of you are doing amazing things, and yeah, looking forward to following all of you as well.
this was episode 1 of Ask the Experts with Urvashi Batra. Thank you all for listening, and make sure to stay tuned for the next episode.